Nation on the screen. Isn't that cool? Okay, May-based questions. May-based questions. In many situations, attacking Hanamura especially, when playing a Sombra, I priority hack the Mei so my team can rush. I also focus damage on the Mei. Is this the correct idea of Sombra? If yes, it's something Mei players should be wary of. I actually really like that. I really do like that. The reason why is Mei, as you can see, dancing around. She's a chunky lass. You know, she's got a big hitbox. She isn't like D.Va, who's just a fucking stick. This is D.Va in comparison. So as Sombra, like if you consider your spread, it's actually very easy to land a lot of damage onto a Mei. If you can hack her as well, make sure you're letting the team, like your team, know so that they can run through, because you can't wall, you can't ice block. Mei really suffers from being hacked, so very, very high priority target. She's just good for building her ultimate on. You'll very rarely kill her because she's just got a lot of hit points unless you get good headshots, but then you have to be so close that she can kill you. It's a little bit tricky. So yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that. If you are playing Mei and Sombra does hack you, just try and freeze her, and then just, because the moment the freeze starts landing, she basically has to teleport out, so you're minimizing that time. And yeah, then just be ready to Blizzard if she fucks up on an EMP, or try and get a good wall. Just also, if you can like block the hack, then it's just a good thing to do as well. What maps is Mei strongest on, and when should you switch to her and off her? 2 control point. She's absolutely the strongest on 2 control point. The reason being is that she's the queen of choke points, right? So she can just control them extremely well. She used to be good on Numbani, but now people are running dive on Numbani, so it's kind of ugh. She's bad against dive comps because they just go over the wall or around the wall and they can just get through it, no problem. So yeah, I wouldn't say that, but definitely 2 control points, definitely Hanamura. Well, somewhat on Temple of Anubis. The problem with Anubis is, again, the teams generally run dive comp, and this with Hanamura, there's one gate, like the Shimada Brothers thing. So there's just like the one gate. Then you have like the car over here that's just peeking through, and then you have like the little diner thing in the back with the large health pack in it, and all that kind of stuff. And then there's an alleyway that goes down this way. So yeah, with Hanamura, there's just like the one doorway, but with Temple of Anubis, you have like the full thing here, the T. Basically, with the little box in front of it, with the bricks and all that stuff. And so with both doors available, like you wall one, they just run through the other. That feels bad. Also, you generally get like a widow stood on top, and so she's just going to shoot the shit out of everyone. You don't offer any good security about that. The second point, she's not bad, but again, they have 3 attack paths, so you kind of split them on one, and then they can push through the others. Mei is just very good at stalling as well. Like anytime you use a stall, Mei, absolutely good pick. Mei is also extremely powerful on if they only have like 1 minute to push. So if you're playing like King's Row, any hybrid map, and they have to take a point, you can build up the ultimate in 1 minute, but even if they get on it, cap it, and then have to start pushing the payload, if you can land the Blizzard on the payload, you basically win, because it just clears the payload instantly. And that's a really good way of doing that. Loving the new dances. The new dances are pretty great. If you're going to ask questions, do use the @ thing, because otherwise I'm missing. Why can Hanzo? Because A, come on, really. And B, it's tricky to do, actually. Back in my day, Scatter used to headshot. Can any other healers other than Mercy heal Mei and Ice Block? Actually, they made it, it's like a relatively recent change where she can actually be targeted now, so I think Zenyatta can do it. I'm not sure if Lucio can. I don't think Ana can either. It's a bit annoying, but if you do have the heal boost on her, then she will heal faster, which is nice. I really feel like Mei is much more powerful than given credit for. The wall is so good of an ability, then there has to be more ways to use it. Any idea of why no one got her yet, other than the previous mobility things? Actually, there was a time in the meta when Mei was in meta. She was very powerful. It was basically back when Blizzard, I think, was first nerfed. Blizzard was first buffed to have a lower cooldown. It was basically so low that you could use it every fight. And so you saw people like Tavik, for example, bring in the Mei out, especially on maps like King's Row was a big one. Hanamura was another one. But when dive comp is so popular, when dive comp is so big, it just becomes less effective, because if you've got heroes like Winston, Genji, Tracer, who can all get through it or past the wall extremely quickly, then it's difficult. D.Va is another example, very mobile, easy for them to get past walls, so splitting the team off is a little bit trickier. When the game is slower, then you could see Mei coming up. We even saw Mei sometimes be used to try and deal with triple tank. It's always been sort of on the table as a tool to try and beat that. But then we saw D.Va sort of coming in as well, and D.Va's very good at counteracting blizzards, and if you can't get blizzard off as Mei, then you're going to have problems. So She's a little bit meta dependent, but anytime you're forced into a defensive posture, Mei's pretty strong. What flavor of snow is Mei? Snow has flavors? I'm guessing you mean ice cream? I don't know. Raspberry. Blue raspberry. Because she's... Oh. You got the blue. That's why. Oh. Bring you back. How do you advise learning to keep track of enemy ults? Any tricks? So... Actually, Overwatch Central released a video today that I thought was okay. Which was... Although I disagree on some of the points slightly. I think IS sucks as a real thing against the Ana training drills, and I agree partially that it's not the greatest thing in the world for practicing aim, that it only really helps you practice aiming against bots, but it does help you spot out bad habits, and it can help you a little bit. It's not the be-all and end-all. I think some people recommend it as the be-all and end-all, but it does help a tiny bit. It's just it's not definitely not better than just going into quick play and practicing aiming there, though. But in terms of, like, one of the pieces of advice they give is that you don't have to keep track of every enemy's ultimate. The best thing I can recommend you do is, if you think about how, I've described this before, but I'll go through it quickly again. A team has 6 slots, okay? And I generally think of it as main tank, off tank, main DPS, let's call it MD, flex DPS, and then sort of main support, flex support. Okay, main support. So main tank is like your Reinhardt or your Orisa. Off tank is more like your Zarya and Roadhog. Main DPS is like your soldiers, Soldier 76, that kind of stuff. Flex is usually Genji, Tracer, that kind of thing. Or even Mei would count in the flex DPS. Main support would be your big healer, so Mercy or Ana. Then your flex support would be the Lucio or Zenyatta. It's not hard and fast. You can sort of swap these around. You don't have to have necessarily an off tank. You can have triple DPS, for example. You could have all sorts of different things going on. You can play Roadhog as more of a DPS role, for example, that sort of stuff. But these are the general ideas. So if you are playing in the flex DPS role, try and keep track of your counterpart. Try and keep track of also any ultimates that are very, very relevant to what you're trying to do. So, for example, if you are playing Genji, you want to know or understand how often will they have Sound Barrier? The answer I can give you is that Sound Barrier is one of the slower building ultimates, so you can generally expect them about 2 per round. So if they use it, and I'd say about 3 minutes is usually, well, not 3 minutes, I'd say it's a bit faster. Yeah, it's about 3 minutes usually it takes to build up a Sound Barrier. If Lucio's been doing extremely well, got a couple of good boops, you can build a lot faster, but in general it's about, well, I'd say like 3 fights is actually more realistic. 3-4 fights for a Sound Barrier. Transcendence is a bit faster, Mercy Res is absolutely faster. Generally about, like, Mercy Res is usually about 2 fights, Transcendence is about 2 fights, it's that kind of thing. That's how I think about 2 team fights, Mercy Res, 2 team fights, Transcendence, that kind of stuff. You can also measure it against the rate that you gain ultimates, unless something anomalous happens where you suddenly deal a shitload of damage and you get an ultimate super fast. Then you could start thinking in terms of, well, Transcendence builds very similarly to the speed that I build my ultimate, which is sort of a balancing mechanic. Therefore, they're quite likely to have Transcendence if I have Dragon Blade. Can I wait out the Transcendence? Can I bait out the Transcendence intentionally? Can I do that kind of stuff as well? There's ways of doing it, and there's sort of those kind of tricks. Otherwise, it's just a matter of playing a lot, and you just get used to the rhythm of the game and sort of how other people are doing things, how fast other people are doing things. And so you can use the guess when stuff is starting to come online. When in doubt, assume they have it, is the best advice I can give you as well. I was watching one of your YouTube videos and it told me you were streaming. Now here I am. Nice! I'm glad it did. I'm glad you're here. Hello, welcome. Yesterday, playing Mei, Sombra EMP'd me out of my ice block. I feel like this shouldn't be possible. I didn't know that that happened, but lol is all I can say to that. So EMP cancelled your ice block. I'm guessing that might be a mechanical thing about how EMP works, because basically it has to still be able to hit the Mei, and so it hits the Mei and then cancels her ability. And so it acts like you've toggled it off, basically, and then just unblocks you. Interesting. Do you consider Mei to be a counter to Genji and Tracer? No. I consider Mei to be an annoyance and a problem for Genji. For Tracer, it's a lot harder. So with Genji, Mei basically is an exclusion zone. So the way I think of it is like this. Let's say you are playing, like, let's say that this circle is your team, and you are the Mei, and you are stood in your team. What Mei is doing is she's basically creating an exclusion zone Where she can reach is where I cannot go as Genji, because if I go in there, then I have to use my dash to get out. Unless I get a kill, I must dash to get away. There's no way I can avoid the freeze, there's no way I can avoid any of that stuff. It's very hard for me to operate anywhere near MEI. It's actually, if I did this right, it's more a circle specifically, you know, radius R extends out from the MEI. So I cannot do anything like that. If the team is more scattered, then I just go where the MEI isn't, and I can work around her. But she just makes it very difficult. The idea is that my team, because the enemy's running a MEI, their damage output will be lower. Therefore, my team can do a lot of work. I can poke very slowly and then go in and just clean up off the back of that. With Tracer, it's trickier, because Tracer should never be frozen by MEI. That should never happen. She has 3 blinks, she has a recall. As long as she can blink away from the MEI, she is perfectly fine. But headshots from MEI will completely wreck a Tracer. It just destroys her. So the MEI is sort of a problem in that regard, but it's no more of a problem than fighting Soldier 76. And if a Helix rocket lands, then I'm in trouble. It's no different than if they have a Hanzo. It's no different than if they have a McCree. So I wouldn't say she's especially difficult for the Tracer. And the problem that MEI also faces is that, like I said earlier with Sombra, MEI is very vulnerable to spray characters. She's a chunky lass, and therefore she has a lot to shoot. She's similar to Zarya in that regard, that she has a thick enough body that you will be able to land all the spray. Therefore, you'll be able to build up an ultimate very quickly. Therefore, you can get a lot done. So that's sort of MEI's weaknesses to Tracer. So I wouldn't, like, if they have a Genji Tracer, my instinct would not be, oh, let's get a MEI. MEI is an option, and not a bad option, but it's not a hard counter. And I don't like the idea of hard counters anyway. I love that how Snowball smiles when she's done. I didn't even notice that. The new dancing thing is very distracting. Too bad. I want to have something on the screen. I actually want to mute it, I think. Let me try and do that over here. Can I do that over here? No, I'd have to do it on screen. It's annoying. Oh, didn't want to do that. I should get some music playing in the background. I don't know. How would you break through 2.2 CP when they're defending with a MEI? I always find it's very hard to push against her, especially since she can freeze you 2 seconds in close proximity. Basically, you've got to make sure the push all comes in as one unified block, so it's basically a coordination issue. The alternative is to go in from the sidelines with something. So let's say second point Hanamura. Let me pause MEI. MEI, stop it. Yeah, just stand there in the background. So let's pretend that we're looking at second point Hanamura. I like I'm in the client and I'm not using it, but loading it in would take way too long, I think. Let's use the red because that'll pop more. Okay. So you've got the corner area, and then there's like the doorway here, and then there's like the higher ground. So this is the high ground for second point Hanamura. And you've got like the pathway here, and then like the pathway here. Okay, and then there's like a window here. Usually, what will happen is the MEI will be standing here, and then, yeah, you will push in, she will put a wall up, and then you'll be fucked. So what you can do is, you have a couple of options. A, you all move in together, and then you just try and kill the MEI as quickly as possible, and then you just sort of drag the fight out so that either the wall will go down, or that people can just blow through the wall. Remember, it only has 1,000 hit points on each block, so you can generally blow through it relatively quickly, especially if you have like a Roadhog or something shooting at it. So you just try and bait the fight into this space where you aren't going into where the enemy team likely is, which is over here. You don't want to be over there, you want to be fighting more over here. Should not have drawn those lines. The alternative, those lines are going to have to stay there now. The alternative is you get something like a Pharah and you send something in to draw the MEI's attention, and then you push. So that you need some sort of attention away from them. The other alternative is you just ignore it completely and just go straight on the point. And then just try and fight with ultimate advantage. The big things you got to be careful of is Blizzard is just so good at contesting the point as well, so try and keep track of the Blizzard. Every 2 fights he's probably going to have it, and so therefore you're going to have to deal with it one way or another. Res after it, defense matrix it, just don't clump up in a stupid way on the point. You have options. Those are your options. Put a barrier up, although the barrier won't stop the Blizzard coming through. You can maybe protect a couple of people and just make it stop short somewhere. You have 1 or 2 options of trying to deal with that. Other than that, like, the best way I found is just generally trying to get like a flanker or something onto the back of her, and then getting like a Pharah, Genji, Tracer, get on her, try and assassinate her, try and shut her down, and then go on the back of it. If you have Sombra, hacker, EMP her. She probably can't stop it, and then you just win. Moats. Dance. Back in. We're back on the dance. Baiting the wall is another option, of course, as well. So you send someone in who's fast and who might be survivable enough as well, and then just instantly run out. Just like stand in the doorway as well and just like back and forth. The danger is that if she's clever, she won't fall for it and you'll just bide her time. Are there any situations where you would take MEI over a tank pick? It's not a bad idea. A 2CP is definitely conceivable. You could pick her over the Roadhog or over the Diva or Zarya. Like, she's definitely an alternative there to basically assist with the Reinhardt. Because if you think about what her role is on something like Hanamura, you've got that main gate. The main gate. Reinhardt's going to be standing in it, blocking it, and then when Reinhardt needs a breather, you just put a wall up and then it's fine. And then Reinhardt can rest for a moment or two, and then he can come back in and keep tanking. She's basically playing like a tank at that point, so it is an option. Like, you can conceivably run 1 tank, 1 MEI, 2 DPS, and 2 healers. Definitely don't swap a healer for her. Does MEI occupy a tank or DPS slot? Either. Like, it's actually literally both questions going at the same time. Pretty much either works. Just understand that, like, the trade-off with MEI is that you are losing damage, usually. So she does not kill things as quickly as other people, because she either has to freeze them, then kill them, and that takes a couple of seconds, or she's right-clicking away, which isn't as reliable as something like a McCree, or a Hanzo, or a Widowmaker, or like a Tracer trying to deal DPS in the back, or a Genji hunting things down. It's just not as reliable as other choices. You are bringing her for the wall, for the blizzard, and for her survivability. That's what she's here for. Snow cones are a thing, true. I find myself in a group with MEI. What DPS would complement her best? Someone that can reliably confirm kills? Yeah, it's pretty strong, to be honest. So, against soldiers, just complements everything quite nicely. McCree also works very well with her, because you flashbang them, she freezes them, and you get a kill. It's no problem. You generally would just want something relatively reliable and consistent. I would avoid going Genji, because it's like cross-purpose, where the Genji wants to be ranging out and dashing around and jumping out and hunting stuff down aggressively, and MEI wants to be waiting, biding her time, trapping and ambushing. So it doesn't work very well. You could also conceivably run a very tanky comp of triple tank plus MEI, and then just clump on a point and then make them come to you and just be immovable. That's also a way of playing. The danger with that is like they come in with ultimates and you could just lose. So be a bit careful with that. What do you think of playing MEI as a counter to Tracer Genji? You know, I've kind of covered this, where it can work. It is an option, but there are other options in playing McCree. I think McCree is more reliable as an option. I think MEI is not a bad choice if you're playing on 2CP. It's absolutely a fine choice. It's also a good choice if you are in the final round of a push of a payload map, and they only have like a minute to take the point and push the payload. Then it's fine, because you're looking to get that high-value blizzard, but otherwise, I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't particularly panic. Like, MEIs are frustrating for me as Genji, but not the end of the world, and you can generally deal with them if you're good enough, and Tracers just sort of, it becomes a lottery. It's like fighting Roadhog. It's just the same thing of, like, if she lands the shots, then okay, fair enough. If I land my shots, I get free pulse bombs all day. And that's kind of how that matchup ends up. You know what the tag in MEI Snarf, it says made in China. Oh lord. How to avoid being a spy MEI where your walls help the enemy team more than yours? No, I'm not salty about recent games. Why do you ask? It sucks to say this, but you need to practice. Like, you have to play MEI and you have to practice it and just let that develop and let the skill germinate in you. The advice I will give is that you usually have to put the wall a little bit further back than you would expect. That's usually what tends to go wrong for people, is they'll try and put the wall like right behind someone, not realizing that the enemy is moving back at the same time. So what ends up happening is the wall goes up and then they're just still on top of it. They're up here now and they're perfectly safe, and then they drop behind it and it feels stupid. So don't be afraid to put it back a couple of steps so that they walk into it. That's usually the best way of doing it, because otherwise what ends up happening is they just fall off the back of it and then they're safe and you've saved them. If you do make a mistake, drop the wall as quickly as possible, because people are not anticipating your wall. The EMP ice block thing, I think that's a ping thing. I've been hooked out of ice block. Maybe it's a ping thing, maybe it just happened at the same time. Who knows? Favor the shooter is a thing in Overwatch, so if you use an ability and they use an ability and one counters the other, it usually favors the person who's doing the proactive thing. So yeah. Maybe a ping thing. Yeah, I thought so. Well, you don't like the idea of hard counters. I don't like the idea of hard counters because they're not fun. And it also puts people in the wrong mindset. For the longest time, for example, people thought Winston was the hard counter to Genji. What people are finding now is that the Genjis are a lot better about playing around Winstons. And so they're able to get away with a lot more. Even though the Winston is there and causing problems, it's still possible to do things. And so the idea of, oh, they have a Winston, swap off, isn't necessarily true. Again, let's get definitions clear here as well so that everyone's talking on the same page. To me, the idea of a hard counter is this. If I pick A and you pick B, you win almost every instance. Pretty much every single time, you win. A soft counter is where if I pick A and you pick B, you have a slight advantage, but I have ways of working around you. And as long as I have ways of working around you, it is not a hard counter. To me, a hard counter is basically, if they have this, you cannot do this. On equal footing, there is no way for you to get away with stuff. Soft counter is more like on equal footing, you still have options, but they have advantages. An example of this to me is the MEI Tracer or the MEI Genji, where if they pick MEI, and I am playing Genji, I can get hit by the MEI every now and then, but I just have to play around her in a clever way. I have to change my playstyle slightly, but I can still work against it. And I think people have gotten to this mindset of where they've been told, you know, Overwatch is a game of swapping up your comp and swapping up your heroes, and I think the composition as a whole matters a lot more than the individual hero picks, in that if you are playing a very stodgy tanky comp and you have, or if you're playing like a purely projectile-based team and they're running a Pharah, then the Pharah has all the space in the world to do what she wants, and she can just fly around and shoot people. Like, she's feeling happy about that. And there's a beak. So she's flying around and she's just rocketing, raining death from above. Nothing really happens with that. If you pick Soldier, to me, that is not a hard counter. The Pharah just has to adapt and can't float around as freely and can't do quite as much. When the team lineup goes to Soldier, Widowmaker, Reinhardt, Diva, that's a hard counterpoint. That's when there's four soft counters all putting pressure on you, making your life impossible. Therefore, now you have to swap. And so to me, the idea of like, oh, this hero is the hard counter to this one is kind of, and I think it's kind of the wrong way of thinking about it. More question, Maycree. You can output the DPS headshots as, I don't think the DPS is quite the same, and the thing with McCree is McCree has just better kill tools. So McCree just kills things faster in general. He's more reliable. He's got hit scan versus your projectiles. I think MEI's damage is 80 per icicle, and so a headshot will one-shot a tracer. I think that might be changed. Let me Google it. I'm sure there's an answer. MEI Overwatch Wiki. Let's see. Primary fire, secondary fire. 22 to 75 damage, has drop off. Okay, 75, so yeah, it does 150 on headshot if close range. The drop off is kind of brutal, to be honest. So you've got to be a bit careful. She's one of the few heroes that does have projectile drop off, and it's good that she does, because she was literally a better McCree for a while. Yeah, 1.17 shots per second. Ooh, I like the details. McCree is 70 damage a shot. Hit scan does have like relatively similar drop off, but because he's hit scan, it's just a lot more reliable. MEI can do 8 shots a clip as well. It's 25 per shot, I think, or is it 20? I know that's gone back and forth, so I'm not 100% sure. This is the thing with me. I've seen so many patches now. 25 rounds per shot, yeah, so it's 8 in total. I think it started off as 20 and then got turned to 25. But yeah, I'd say that, again, McCree's just better at killing stuff, which he kind of has to be because MEI has so much utility. So if you are even the most godly of god MEIs, you'll still not be as effective of a killing machine as McCree. General 2CB question. What do you consider when you think to push in non-standard routes? Basically capitalize on the surprise as fast as possible. So the advantage is this. When you are trying to like push in and go aggro and see what the enemy is doing, or when you're trying to push in and go on aggro, usually like the enemy team has like the Reinhardt facing the main pathway, and they've got people just watching the main pathway, and as you go higher ranks, they'll be better at scouting unconventional routes, but they usually all got their eyes on like the main pathway. And so if you come in from an angle that's unexpected, you've got to capitalize it and ambush them as fast as you can. Just get the damage out, speed boost in, get in fast, get an ultimate out as fast as you can, get some kills, and then just snowball the fight. Make that work for you. If you are, otherwise you are usually like losing something off the back of it. So the reason why Hanamura, for example, is so like high ground oriented is if you don't push on the high ground and they have a couple of people that stay up there while others intelligently drop down, and Soldier 76, for example, stays up there with a Mercy, you cannot take the high ground back. They will just keep shooting at you, and if they play slow, then they will just win the fight. So you've got to do something about that. You've got to send like a Genji in to get Dragon Bladed out and just get kills. You've got to get an Earth Shadow onto someone somewhere and clear the point quickly. You've got to do something dramatic and fast. Can you run Reaper with MEI? I'd say that you're way too short range, and if they just pick Pharah, you lose. And they just pick, I think if they pick Roadhog or Diva, you also lose. So no. Any questions? People talking about Reaper? I think it's 75. There we go. Ryan Central's just started watching. Hello, Ryan. I think that'll actually be a good point to stop here. So, thank you guys for watching to the end. Thank you to... I've seen you in chat repeatedly. Why am I blanking on your name? Let me bring it up so I don't forget. Jekyll, that's it. That's you. Of course it is Jekyll. Apologise, I'm terrible at names. I always forget them. But Jekyll, thank you for sending in the footage. Hopefully this has been somewhat useful. Hopefully this has been useful about MEI. If you do want to send in footage, thank you, Arkathor. To get your footage reviewed, do send it into oamreviews@gmail.com. Include the hero name and the rank in the title. So, for example, this was MEI at about 1500. And then include a YouTube link or something, a Twitch VOD. If it's a Twitch VOD, make sure you're streaming at like 6K and just have high quality, because otherwise it's a bit of a nightmare to try and watch. You've probably seen, if you've seen Coaching the Many in the past and seen some of the low quality videos, you know it gets very blurry. This was actually a really nice high quality video, so nice. I like it. Otherwise, yeah, thank you guys for watching to the end. Make sure you do come and join us live as well if you are watching this on the YouTubes. It is at ESL_Overwatch, ESL_OneAmongstMany, ESL Overwatch is a different thing entirely. The link is in below. Follow the stream, then you'll know when I go live. Follow me on Twitter. I tweet every single time that I go live, so you'll know there as well. And yeah, that'll be good. Otherwise, thank you for watching to the end. Doodles.